Hello, it's the last
Hello.
chapter.
Good morning, Miss Letty.
So let's see how the story finishes. I think it's the last chapter, unless I am mistaken. So it's your turn. You can start to read. Off you go.
Okay.
Let's see how it finishes.
All right, okay. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own. The room was his own. Best and happiness of all, the future was his own, to change his life in. I will remember the past and think of the future, repeated Scrooge as he jumped out of bed. God bless you, Jacob Marley, and God bless Christmas. In his excitement, he found it difficult to speak. His face still wet from crying. Here are my bed curtains, he cried delightedly. They aren't stolen, and I'm alive. Those were only shadows of things that may be. The future will be different. I know it will. All this time his hands were busy, hurriedly putting on his clothes. He put his left foot in his right shoe, couldn't find the buttons on his shirt, and forgot to brush his hair. I don't know what I'm doing, said Scrooge, laughing and crying at the same time. A Merry Christmas to everybody. A Happy New Year to all the world. Hooray! There's the door which Jacob Ghost came through. There's the corner where the ghost of Christmas sat.
So, if we remember correctly, he's just been visited by the ghost of the future, and he got such a surprise, no, shock, frightened, because he saw a dead Scrooge. He saw the gravestone and all the things that could happen to him in the future. So this woke him up, made him think, and this is where we pick up the story, where we think he has changed his outlook on life, thanks to what he has seen with the ghosts. So let's continue. So here we see Scrooge getting ready in such a hurried way. And he's so busy thinking of everything he's seen, what he wants to do, that he isn't getting dressed correctly. There's the window where I saw the traveling ghost. It's all true. It's all happened. Really, for a man who hadn't laughed for so many years, it was an excellent laugh. The father of a long line of excellent laughs. I don't know what day of the month it is, said Scrooge. I don't know how long I've been with the spirits. I don't know anything. I'm just like a baby. Never mind. I prefer being a baby. Hooray! Just then he heard the church bells ring out louder than he had ever heard before. Running to the window, he opened it and looked out. No fog at all. A clear, bright, cold day. Golden sunlight, blue sky, sweet, clean air, merry bells. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. What's today? He cried, calling down to a boy in the street. Today? Replied the boy in a great surprise. Why, it's Christmas Day. So I haven't missed it, thought Scrooge. The spirits have done it all in one night. He called down to the boy again. Hello, young man. Do you know the meat shop at the corner of the next street? Of course I do, replied the boy. What an intelligent boy, said Scrooge. Do you know if they've sold the big turkey that was in the window yesterday? Now, I've noticed something. He played a compliment to the little
Yes,
boy.
for the first time.
Yeah, so otherwise he would have said something horrible, no? And he
Oh,
would
yes,
have
of course.
insulted the young boy. Off you go.
What, the big one, the one as big as me? Asked the boy. What a delightful boy, said Scrooge. It's wonderful talking to him. Yes, that's the one. It's still there in the window, said the boy. Is it? Said Scrooge. Well, go and buy it. You don't mean it, cried the boy. I do, I'm serious. Go and buy it and tell the man to bring it back here. Come back with the man and I'll give you a shilling. Come back in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you 3 shillings. The boy went off like a bullet from a gun. I'll send the turkey to Bob Cratchit, laughed Scrooge. He'll never know who sent it. It's twice as big as Tiny Tim. Ha ha.
Right. So you can imagine he's throwing his money away now,
Yeah.
where he would never open his purse before.
Yeah.
He went on laughing as he wrote Bob's address, gave it to the man with the turkey, and paid for a taxi before the turkey was much too heavy to carry all the way to Camden Town. Now he finished dressing and went out into the streets, wearing his best clothes. The town was full of happy, busy people, and Scrooge smiled at all of them. 3 or 4 men said carefully to him, Good morning, sir, and a Merry Christmas to you. Scrooge thought these were the best psalms that he had ever heard. As he was walking, he suddenly noticed one of the comfortable-looking gentlemen who had come to his office to ask for money for the poor. Scrooge went straight up to him, took the old gentleman by both hands, and said, My dear sir, how are you? A Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Mr. Scrooge? Asked the gentleman, surprised. Yes, that's my name. I'm very sorry for what I said to you when you visited me yesterday. Will you please? And he spoke very quietly in the gentleman's ear. Good heavens, cried the gentleman. My dear Mr. Scrooge, are you serious? I am, not a shilling less. I must tell you, I haven't given anything to anyone for years. My dear sir, said the gentleman, shaking his hands with him, I don't know how to thank you for... Don't say anything, please, replied Scrooge. Will you come and see me tomorrow about it? I will, cried the old gentleman happily.
So, when we give money to a charity, I think it's called a donation.
That's right.
So he has donated some money to the charity for the poor people who this man had asked for. So here we see the massive turkey still with its feathers on. They will still need to pluck it and clean it. Oh, I wouldn't like that. And he is giving them money. Thank you and God bless you, said Scrooge. He went to church and watched the people and gave children money for sweets and discovered that he had never been so happy in his life. In the afternoon, he went to his nephew's house. He passed the door several times before he was brave enough to knock. But at last he did it and was taken into the sitting room where Fred and his pretty wife were waiting for their friends to arrive for dinner. Fred, said Scrooge, is your Uncle Scrooge? I've come to dinner. Will you let me stay, Fred? Let him stay? Fred almost shook his uncle's arm off. Scrooge felt at home in 5 minutes. Nothing could be merrier. And what a wonderful dinner they had. Wonderful party, wonderful games, and wonderful happiness.
But he was early at the office next morning. Oh, he was there early. He wanted to catch Bob Cratchit arriving late. And he did. The clock struck 9. No Bob. 1:15. No Bob. He was 18.5 minutes late when he finally hurried in. Scrooge was sitting with his office door open. "Hello," said Scrooge in his old hard voice. "What do you mean by coming here so late?" "I'm very sorry, sir," said Bob. "I am late. It's only once a year. We were rather merry yesterday, sir." "Now, I'll tell you what, my friend," said Scrooge. "I'm not going to have this any longer." And so he continued, jumping off his chair and shaking Bob's hand. "I'm going to pay you twice as much."
We can imagine Bob being so frightened, arriving late, and what a big surprise he got with the change in Scrooge, no?
Yeah.
So he would have arrived late because he would have been merry the night before, a little drunk, and then he got a surprise that Scrooge had changed. Bob's face went white. For a second or two, he thought that Scrooge had gone crazy. "A Merry Christmas, Bob," said Scrooge, and it was clear that he meant it. "A merrier Christmas, Bob, than I've ever given you for a long time. I'm going to pay you well and help you with your family, and we'll discuss it all this afternoon over a Christmas drink, Bob. Put more wood on the fire at once, Bob Cratchit, and let's be comfortable." Scrooge did everything that he had promised and more. To Tiny Tim, who did not die, he became a second father. He became a good friend, employer, and a man as anyone in London or in the world. Some people laughed to see the change in him, but he did not care. His heart laughed inside him, and that was good enough for him.
He never had any more conversation with spirits, but kept Christmas cheerfully and lived a happy life. That is what all of us want. And so, as Tiny Tim said, God bless us, everyone.
So it had a happy ending. And I hope it has all made us reflect a little bit, to start maybe a few little things different than what we do. So, Alan, could you start to read this and let's see what it says?
Sometimes the best lessons learned come from our mistakes and failures. In A Christmas Carol, Scrooge saw the mistakes he had made and the opportunities that had passed him by. While unable to change the past, he still had the opportunity to learn from his mistakes and ensure they were not repeated in the future. Some might see the book as only a tale about a bitter miser, Ebenezer Scrooge, who is visited on Christmas Eve by 4 spirits who force him to examine his selfish ways.
Right.
But it's really a story of reflection and renewal life.
Right. So I think this sums up what we have been saying all along. I think in my generation, I don't know about you, Alan, people used to look badly on mistakes and failures. But now, in the new trend, I think is people say we can learn a lot from our mistakes and failures more than success. So the mindset has changed. People look on life in a different way.
Yes, and of course, if we're being honest with ourselves, this is where we reflect, and we say this is where the business about I'm going to any New Year resolutions. In other words, they say, "Are you making any New Year resolutions this year?" And you may have already given it some thought and thought, "Yes, I didn't. I should have done this or that last year, but this year I'm going to put the record straight, and I intend to do my very best to change my ways of thinking or whatever." And so this is where I think the New Year resolutions comes in.
Yeah. I believe that if you're going to try and change, you should start small and not too big, and something which is possible to do.
Oh,
no?
yeah, it is achievable. Yes.
Yes. Right. Learning begins with listening. Initially, Scrooge wants nothing to do with the spirits, but once he realizes they have his best interest at heart, he willingly lets them lead. When we listen, we learn. When we learn, we have the potential to grow and change in ways that will not only help us, but those around us. That is a very good skill, listening, and not all of us have this skill.
Oh no, some people are very good listeners and some are terrible. I won't put any names, but I meet quite a few who all they want to do is talk, 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 and not listen.
I've seen that when you're talking to somebody, they don't take breath, and
That's right. Yes,
they
it's
don't
like
look in your eyes. If they don't look eye to eye, you know they're not listening to you. They're passing the
no,
time.
you know right away that this is just going in one ear and out the other.
Yeah. Right. Read the next one.
Bitterness will poison you. Scrooge's nephew, Fred, is a wise man. It is Fred who points out the consequences of Scrooge's taking a dislike to us and not merry with us. Is, I think, that he loses some pleasant moments. He loses pleasant companions. Fred's invitation to join in the Christmas merriment, it's Scrooge who loses. The victim of bitterness is ourselves.
So to help viewers, bitter is like a lemon. So if we have a bad taste in our mouth and it's bitter, it's similar to a lemon, to give the viewers something to understand. Right, let's continue. There's joy in starting over. Scrooge gets a bad rap. Too much attention is paid to his mean spirit and not enough to all new Ebenezer. So they're saying that they spend a lot of the time talking about how bad he is and not how much he's changed.
That's right.
We see the moody, bitter, biting Scrooge, but not the laughing, giving, joyful Scrooge. On Christmas morning, however, he reminds us that starting over again makes us feel like new. People get into ruts and forget they needed to be like this. They needn't be like this. Scrooge turn around reminds me there's hope for all of us if we're willing to begin anew. So to get in a rut is to be in the same routine, the same habit.
Not changing your ideas or your habits.
Because we're in our comfort zone, no?
That's right.
And sometimes we should try and change a little and see how it goes. Okay, the next one.
We must be present to win. On Christmas morn, one of the first things Scrooge does after realizing he's been given a second chance at life is to fling open his windows. He moves from thinking about himself to the world at large. He notices life around him instead of only himself. To notice is to see To see is to feel. To feel is to build connections with those around us. And to build connections is to bring love to the world.
This brought to mind that we're always with our heads in our phones and we don't pay attention to the simple things around us, no? Maybe a flower or a tree or someone who is passing. Sometimes when I'm walking, I look at the people and I think it's amazing how many people are like this with their heads in their phones, no? So it says here that we should notice and look at the things around us. We need to live with the end in mind. Wow.
This is
Scrooge
your last day
finally,
on earth.
Scrooge finally realized he had wasted his life on money and power. Therefore, seeing that there's an end to that life, it's a rather depressing end. To live with the end in mind is to be inspired to change now. As everyone once said, the best time to plant a tree was 50 years ago, but the second best time is now. So I think it wants to tell us that we should never give up, and there is always time to change, even if it's late on in life. It's never too late.
Mm.
So we finished the story after so many weeks, but I think it was a good story. I'd forgotten really the meaning behind the story until we started to read it. So
yes, quite refreshing, and it's like you say, it makes you stop and think about one or two little things. Yes, he's right, really. Perhaps that's something I should really seriously consider. Not that I'm a Scrooge, but there are little things that rankle in me, and I think I must change my ways.
yeah, only if we change one. If we
Yes,
can change one thing, it would be one thing for the better.
yes.
So thank you, Alan. It's
You're
been
very
a
welcome.
pleasure to read. And also, I took this book because it was from my childhood, but without remembering the meaning. So it's brought two things together. The meaning, it's given me reflection. And
Yes.
also, I remember reading it as a child. So I will see you again, Alan.
Okie dokie.